Well, it's been quite some time since I did one of these, huh? But I mean, not too long, so it's really all good when you think about it. But enough about how timely I am with videos. Let's just talk about some 2-year-old music already. Of course, the usual disclaimer that this is all my own opinion, yada yada. But let's kick this off with our Artist of the Year. And of course, it's the Chainsmokers again! Nobody else makes such consistently great middle-aged soccer mom music. But this year, I'm not just mentioning them to give them the honor of the best musical artist of 2019, but I'm also here to congratulate them on their relationship together. Congrats, guys! I'm really happy for you, and I'm hoping that the second search doesn't come true within the next year. I'm gonna need you two to keep churning out cutting-edge pop music. Otherwise, I won't be able to mention you guys in these videos every year. Alright, moving on, let's get to the best remixes of the year. And starting off at number 4, we have Nightmare's remix of The One by Abstract. As usual, Nightmare comes into the song bringing his signature super hard dubstep drops. Not really much else to say besides that it's Nightmare, and you kind of already know what to expect with him. Next up at number 3 is Face Shopping Lipstick Gel Remix from Sophie's Oil of Every Person's Uninside's Non-Stop Remix album. The entire remix album is great, but this track is my favorite one. It warps the original so much, and adds in a ton of Sophie's random electronic noises, to the point where you can barely distinguish where the original song was, even in the entire mess. It's really saddening to know that this was Sophie's last full-length album before her untimely death. Sophie's music is amazing, and she single-handedly helped change the landscape of just pop music in general, and she will live on forever through it. Next up at number 2 is Comtruse's remix of Warm Pants by Dua Sala. Dua Sala already did such an amazing job on the original single with their soothing vocals, and Comtruse builds upon this foundation fantastically by keeping the central melody intact, but producing on top of that using his signature synthwave style. It just perfectly adds the dreamlike quality the original track already had. And finally, at number 1, the best remix of 2019 is the remix of Equip's Cemetery Moonglow by Dinosaur on Fire. All the remixes of Equip's tracks that preceded their 2019 album Cursebreaker X were great, and while St. Pepsi's remix of Shadow Dancer was a close second, this remix took the cake for my favorite of the bunch. The original song was already so mysterious and did a great job of making you feel like you were in some haunted cemetery in some old NES game. But this remix takes that feeling even further. It adds this kind of bass in the back and makes the entire song sound so much more sinister and menacing. I've never really played a Castlevania game before, but this remix kind of feels like it fit the game. Or not. To take my opinion with a grain of salt, I have no clue. Alright, now it's time for best singles of the year. And first off at number 6, we have Metamorphosis by Blank Banshee. This is more of a continuous EP than a single, but it is still technically a single, so here it goes. As far as Blank Banshee music, this one is an extension of where he was moving with his music for Mega. Even more complex patterns of melodies, all layered and layered on each other until you get this weird mosaic that feels like music made from another planet. Next up at number 5 is 2 by Mae. This song just exudes a warm summer vibe. Mae's vocals are so dreamlike and soothing, and listening to it feels like you're just relaxing at the side of a pool, about to fall asleep. At number 4, we have STFU by Rina Sawayama. This is just such a great song to help you get out of any anger or rage by living vicariously through Rina's hardcore singing about wanting idiots to just shut the fuck up. I really hope that description works. This song constantly switches between super loud guitar parts with Rina screaming in the background and relaxed vocal melodies, and while that sounds super jarring and possibly even annoying, this song makes it all work 100%. Next up is Unemployed by Tierra Whack. Tierra Whack is one of my favorite new rappers, and she did not disappoint here. Out of all the songs she released during Whack History Month, this was my favorite. And as usual, her writing is catchy and meaningful, with her commenting on how the lower class is usually portrayed as either lazy or just negatively in general. And also, in usual Tierra Whack fashion, the music video is weird as hell and deserves a watch.
I get down and dirty too. What it is, what it do. Same shit, nothing new.
In second place, we have Movie Screen by Tommy Newport. This song is super funky and so easy to jam out to that you almost forget that this song is Tommy singing about how happy he is that he broke up with a significant other. Regardless of the almost somber theme of the song, it maintains a pretty upbeat tempo for its entire duration. An absolute banger. And in first place, the best single of 2019 is Orbit by Now, but specifically the live version from Air Studios, or even the Colors performance. The studio album version of this song auto-tunes her voice a ton, and it just pales in comparison to the live versions in my opinion. Now has an amazing voice, and the song becomes just that much more magical when you get to hear her belting out each lyric. While this is another song about a breakup, this one has a much more hopeful spin to it, with Now singing about how despite her still being somewhat in love with her previous lover after they broke up, it still resulted in her finding a way to her new lover who she's currently singing the song to. It really is just such a heartfelt song, and I really don't know how else to describe it. Alright, next up we have my favorite video game soundtracks of the year, and kicking it off at number 6 is Ring Fit Adventure. I know, I also wasn't expecting to enjoy the music in this game so much, but it really fucking slaps. While I can't easily show it in this video, my favorite part of the soundtrack is how it adjusts to your different moves during a battle. If you choose to do a yoga move, the music transitions into this more subdued and relaxed version of the battle track. And if you choose a leg move, then the music gets more upbeat with these added claps and beats to help you keep a nice rhythm while exercising. The adaptive aspects of the soundtrack are really well done here, but just on its own, the soundtrack is just solid overall. My favorite track from it is Dragox's battle music. Drago? Honestly, that's the first time I've said that name out loud. The dragon battle music from the game is my favorite. Next up is the later Alligator soundtrack by Too Mellow. This soundtrack is incredibly funky and perfectly fits the style this game is going for. Too Mellow does some crazy stuff with the horns in this soundtrack, with some wild solos and catchy melodies, but overall this soundtrack is also just really chill. Even the most upbeat songs on here are still relaxed enough to make you feel like you're sitting in some jazz bar, listening to a band play while you hang out with some friends. Specifically, alligator friends. My favorite tracks from here are the main theme, Great Gator Date, and Vintage Gator Games. At number 4, we have the soundtrack for A Short Hike by Mark Sparling. This game is all about exploring an island, and to reflect that, Sparling made songs consisting of different instrument layers. Layers that would be added and taken away from the soundtrack as you moved throughout the different zones on the island. The more you explore, the more the soundtrack itself grows and changes with you, and it even has the added effect of helping you mentally map out the island by associating different areas on the map with different versions of the soundtrack. Even without the great adaptive soundtrack implementation, this album just gives off such a hopeful and cheerful vibe, with the piano doing its best to keep the tone of the game as lighthearted and friendly as possible. My favorite track off of it is Somewhere in the Woods. Next up is the Pokémon Sword and Shield soundtrack. While the game itself is pretty mediocre and disappointing, the soundtrack absolutely slaps and is probably the best part of the game. I mean, in my opinion, music is like the one front on which Pokémon games never really falter, and this one's no different. The soundtrack here is massive and runs the gamut from relaxed to heart-pounding. You have the super mysterious and melodic song in the Slumbering Weald, and Pier's battle music which goes really hard, and even kinda incorporates melodies from previous musical themes in the series. My favorite tracks are the aforementioned Slumbering Weald music and Pier's battle music, as well as the Galar Mines music, which just took me by surprise the first time I hear it just due to how incredibly funky it is. The slap bass paired alongside that synth melody, good stuff. In second place, we have the Fire Emblem Three Houses soundtrack. Three Houses was the game I poured the most time into in 2019 by far, And despite me pouring so much time into it, it was one of those games where I can't say the soundtrack really grated on me, aside from maybe the track that plays during the abundance of auxiliary battles. I enjoyed all the music that plays around the school, and the ambient track that plays during any scene with Sothos, but the battle music is where they really struck it out of the park. Everyone is just a mix of orchestral goodness for your ears, with a wide spread of melodies that go from melancholy and reverent to electrifying and powerful. So many highlights throughout the game. That one dubstep track is always a fun surprise to encounter on your first go-around, but my favorite has to be God-Shattering Star, the track that plays at the final battle for the Golden Deer route. Going from that choir singer at the beginning into a full arrangement during the battle really pumped me up while I was playing, and it doesn't let up for its entire runtime. And in the coveted first place spot, my favorite game soundtrack of 2019 was the AI The Somnium Files soundtrack by Keisuke Ito. Ito is already a composer I really admire, having contributed songs to the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon series, and he does not disappoint here. The Somnium Files is a game whose narrative has some wild extremes in terms of tone. It tells a pretty compelling narrative with strong characters, emotional beats, and tense moments, all balanced with some of the goofiest moments I've ever seen in games. Humor that really runs the risk of undermining some of the heavier moments in the plot, but point is, there's a wide variety of moments in the game that all require a huge selection of songs with different tones and melodies to match those scenes, and Ito did an amazing job at doing exactly that. The theme that plays in the car during transitionary moments in the game where you're meant to take a breather and discuss all you've learned has such a great laid-back vibe with this incredible piano melody. A scene delving into the mind of a killer is accompanied by some harsh electronic noises and off-putting sounds. An extremely somber and heartfelt scene that I'm not going to show here for spoiler reasons has a perfectly solemn and tragic melody to go alongside it. Guitar melody to go alongside it. But what takes the cake for me is the game's main theme, with some haunting vocals all overlaid upon each other that all sing the game's leitmotif. It perfectly encapsulates the mysterious and intriguing nature of the game, while allowing for some darker undertones to creep through the song's melody. Alright, time for some EPs. In 6th place we have Civilization 1 by Kero Kero Bonito. This is just some great synth pop, with Kero Kero Bonito's usually peppy and upbeat pop vocals paired with some pretty ethereal synth instrumentation while the songs tell a story of a world in the not so distant future ravaged by the effects of global warming. My favorite track from it is The River. At 5th place is A Promise Is Made by Drulu. Somehow this 10-track project wasn't considered an album? I don't know. In my opinion, it essentially is an album with that many songs, but whatever. This EP is filled with more of their signature bass and melody-heavy future bass. What I appreciate most about Drulu is that, future bass as a genre just really runs the risk of feeling too samey once you listen to all the future bass songs from one artist. And while Drulu definitely has a signature style that's present in everything they make, they do a great job at making each song distinct from the others in style and tone. The songs here run the gamut from fast and upbeat to slow and somber to everything in between. My favorite track from it is Grind and Hustle. At number 4 is Tradition by Monsoon. I first heard Monsoon's music when YouTube recommended me his 2017 song, Nothing in Return, which I absolutely enjoyed, and I immediately jumped into this EP, which continued his amazing style of contemporary R&B. He has a really strong voice, which he uses to full effect in some pretty powerful verses. But more than that, what I loved was his production. The keyboard and guitar absolutely shine on these tracks. He uses them perfectly to make some really memorable melodies and moments where everything just comes together. My favorite track off of it is Out of My Mind. At number 3 is Amahu by Amalu, another great contemporary R&B EP. Like the previous EP, there's some stellar production at play, but it's all used in a pretty conservative way, such that Amalu's vocals take center stage in every song. On the song This Town, a trumpet softly comes in at the start, before making way for Lou to come in with some beautifully sung lyrics about an old flame. Lou's voice shines so much here, she sings such catchy tunes while showing off just how much control she has on switching between octaves. Like it's nothing. Just a soothing set of songs. My favorite track off of it is We Tried, We Tried.
I came home late, you were not there. I didn't care, I think we both know it's so.
In second place, we have Generation by Lim Kim. This is an experimental rap record with influences and elements of Korean folk music and alt R&B. Each song melds the classic Korean folk elements with heavy and harsh electronic production, which seem to be taking inspiration from the recent surge of deconstructed club and hyperpop from artists like Sophie and Arca. The EP alternates between those intense experimental hip-hop tracks with some calmer and more toned-down alt R&B songs, still with the same production style of combining Korean folk sounds with modern production. My favorite track off of it is Yellow, the track that best covers the EP's themes as Lim Kim raps about Asian stereotypes and Orientalism.
Yellow, 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 yellow. Send me some mix, I choose my own fucking seat. Yellow, yellow.
And finally, my favorite EP of the year is The Deep by Clipping. This EP is an expansion of the group's 2017 single, The Deep, and even though it's just 2 new songs, those 2 songs do such a great job at expanding upon the narrative and themes of the original track. Also, this EP was the first time I'd heard the original song, so, to me it might as well be new music entirely. In the titular song, the group describes an underwater society formed from pregnant African slaves thrown overboard from slave ships taking them from Africa. Some great writing on there, and while that song still carries the brunt in terms of setting up the narrative, the 2 other tracks still expand upon that world by describing the subsequent retaliation from the underwater society to the colonizers from the world above. Daveed Diggs, as usual, is a stellar rapper, and it's hard not to get caught up in the EP's world amid his bars and the experimental production. Sure, it was only 3 tracks long, but just an amazing EP all around. Sure, it was only 3 tracks long, but still an amazing EP all around. Also, this EP was released alongside a novella that also expands upon the original world of the single. So, I really want to check that one out, and, I'm pretty curious. The novella itself is supposed to be really good. It got nominated for a ton of sci-fi awards. My favorite track was the main titular track, Deep.
Y'all remember when the regime changed that no please, no calm seas, let the water rise so deep, so deep.
Alright, time to finish this up with my favorite albums of the year. This was such a great year for music, I had an incredibly difficult time narrowing down my top list. So much so that I couldn't get it down to 6. So I'm just making this year's a top 7. I arbitrarily chose 6 as a number to shoot for every year, so it's not like that matters much. Also, it's my list, I can do whatever I want. At 7 is Zoo by Denzel Curry. It's been well established that I'll listen to and enjoy anything he puts out, and this is no different. Doesn't quite hit the highs of his last project Taboo, which was near perfect, but this is still a great album. This one is far less ambitious in comparison, but nevertheless, Denzel has such a great energy and enthusiasm when rapping. And for me, his charisma still gets me really into his stuff, regardless of how stripped back it may be. His writing is on point, as usual, and he again crafts some really catchy hooks and choruses. My favorite tracks off of it are Speedboat, Birds, Shake 88, and Ricky.
Daddy said trust no man but your brothers and never leave your day ones in the gutter. My daddy said treat young.
At 6, we have Glass Island by Richard Luke. This is an incredible modern classical album with haunting and chilling melodies. They're all fairly minimalist in their instrumentation, with most of the songs solely focusing on the piano and violin. But they all work so well. Richard Luke's piano work is magical, and the violin played by Amira Bedrish McDonald is so soothing. The performances on the entire album are like a beautiful duet, and no 2 tracks felt too samey the entire way through. They're all distinct with their own separate tones and ambient atmospheres. My favorite tracks off of it are Red, Last Call, Last to Let Go, and Everything a Reason, a song with a chilling central melody that constantly builds in tension and instrumentation up until the very end. In 5th is Dolos by Merlo. I've always loved Merlo's eclectic UK bass beats with grime and wonky influences. His 2015 EP Odyssey is one of my favorites of all time, and this one just perfectly encapsulates his style. He makes use of so many different electronic beeps, boots, and synths, and he makes it all feel so lifelike. I've never heard production with this many sounds reminiscent of club tracks still give such a lush vibe. So many sounds and melodies layered upon one another. Listening to this, you're like bouncing between soothing and bright songs to more intense club tracks with deep growls and bass kicks. The percussion is something to note here as well. Just as with his previous stints with instrumental grime, Merlo introduces so many different sounds in both the foreground and background to give each track a unique tempo. My favorite tracks are Fauna, Ferns Hollow, Romance, End of the Road, and Limbo. In 4th place is Lab Notes Chapters 11 through 22 by Dr. Ghost. A fantastic follow-up to my favorite album of last year, Lab Notes Chapters 1 through 10, it gives the Dr. Ghost story a proper conclusion with an even wider range of genres and tones. What I loved most about the last one was its ability to convey a narrative via so many different styles, and this one continues that thread. There's more IDM, breakbeat, breakcore, D&B, ambient, but none of it feels disjointed. Dr. Ghost managed to make another incredibly varied record that hits so many different points while still being a cohesive project. And it's a perfect continuation as well, with so many callbacks and tasteful inclusions of the project's leitmotif. If you enjoyed Lab Notes chapters 1 through 10 at all, definitely give this one a listen. And if you haven't listened to that one, do it already, and then listen to this one to match it. My favorite tracks from it are The Haunting of Sarah Hayes, Ritual 2, Convergence, and The Messenger. In third is Igor by Tyler, the Creator. This is an incredible project in every single way. On a sonical level, Tyler has crafted some wildly catchy melodies and beats, with lines that got stuck in my head for months after listening to it for the first time. Production is also on point with some beautiful instrumentation paired with some funky beats and electronic notes. Tyler and all his collaborators give great performances, with the entire album coming together as a super soothing and easygoing listen. But the true highlight on top of all of that is Tyler's writing. Not only does he manage to tell a complete tale of love and heartbreak via the character Igor, who's in a fraught relationship with a man who won't fully commit himself to him, but he does it with some artful and smartly written lyrics. There is so much thought put into every line, some great wordplay. The line, "It's all my fault" on Earthquake is so good. Easily my favorite album of his so far. Although I do need to still go back and listen to his other stuff, I've kind of only listened to Coloring Book so far. My favorite tracks are Running Out of Time, New Magic Wand, Are We Still Friends, and Earthquake.
Cause you make my earthquake.
I don't want no confrontation, no. You don't want my
In second, we have Charlie by Charlie XCX. This is just a near perfect hyperpop record, with so much great production, a slew of good features. It's a non-stop parade of hit after hit. It's an eclectic slew of pop songs, all with at least one song that will likely appeal to everyone. There's multiple callbacks and elements signature to the late 90s and early 2000s era of pop music, all while throwing in a bunch of production cues signature to modern hyperpop, electropop, and art pop. Just all the modern pops. And alongside all the notable features, the producers on this album are also stacked. You have longtime Charlie XCX collaborators A.G. Cook and Easy Fun, but also Dylan Brady of 100 Gex, Planet 1999, and Umru, among others. All that work from all parties clearly paid off, as this album sounds just so dang good. Every song sounds so new and retro at the same time. Auto-tune is used artfully, the tunes are also catchy, and the vibes are just really good. My favorite tracks are Silver Cross, Gone, 1999, Shake It, and Click.
Bunch of bad bitches in my clique, we on a roll, yeah. Can't possible love in this.
And now for my favorite album of the year, but first, some honorable mentions. And be warned, there is a lot. For remixes, Sinjin Hawk and Zora Jones' flashback remix of Merlot's End of the Road. For singles, How You Feel by Swish, Give It Up by Marco McInnes, Sugar Mama by Dua Sala, De Flores de Piedra by Toby Shea, Weddings and Funerals by Royal and the Serpent, Into the Unknown, yes, the Frozen 2 song, by Dino Menzel and Aurora, Sanctuary by Joji, Wiglet by French Montana featuring City Girls, and Heavy Metal by Baby Mother. For game soundtracks, the Sayonara Wild Hearts soundtrack by Daniel Olson and Jonathan Eng. For EPs, Hit the Back by King Princess, The Visitors EP by We Are All Astronauts, Rapture by Coffee, Intervals Above by Koen Sound, and Anachronism by Robotaki. And finally, for albums, again in no particular order, Anger Management by Rigo Nasty and Kenny Beats, Dedicated by Carly Rae Jepsen, No Geography by the Chemical Brothers, HAQQ by Liturgy, 1000 Gex by 100 Gex, Fever by Megan Thee Stallion, Shaped by Fire by As I Lay Dying, Hot Pink by Doja Cat, Fine Line by Harry Styles, There Existed an Addiction to Blood by Clipping, Magdalene by FK Twigs, Centerpoint Road by Thomas Brett, Persuasion System by Com Trues, Gray Area by Little Sims, Proto by Holly Herndon, Norman fucking Rockwell by Lana Del Rey, The Sailor by Rich Brian, You Know What I'm Saying by Danny Brown, XYZ by Igloo Ghost, Kai Whiston and Babby, Brain Drops by Tropical Fuckstorm, Ignorance is Bliss by Skepta, Thank You Next by Ariana Grande, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go by Billie Eilish, Athena by Sudan Archives, Enchanted Instrumentals and Whispers by Windows 96, Cursebreaker X by Quip, All My Heroes Are Cornballs by JPEG Mafia, Nothing Great About Britain by Slow Tie, Pay Attention by Girl, The Jungle is the Only Way Out by Meribah, Hi, This is Flume by Flume, I know it's a mixtape, but I don't have a best mixtape section, so I'm gonna put it in albums. Death Race for Love by Juice WRLD, Plastic Anniversary by Matmos, Flamagra by Flying Lotus,
UDD by Up Dharma Down,
and Assume Form by James Blake, which has Can't Believe the Way We Flow, possibly one of my favorite songs, just ever, but it wasn't released as a single, so it couldn't make the list. But I'm mentioning it here because I love it so dang much. Alright, time to finally end this thing. My favorite album of 2019 is 'Cause I Love You by Lizzo. This album, for me at least, nothing but bangers. Now, just to mention them since it's worth praising, production and songwriting are all great, lyrics are all catchy, the couple features here from Missy Elliott and Gucci Mane are really good, and the album has a good variety in terms of genre, tone, and tempo. But what really stands out for me here, and what single-handedly carries this album all the way to the top, is Lizzo herself. She has such a powerful voice, and she absolutely uses it to its full potential on here. She belts lyrics out with her soul during every power ballad here, and even on the few slower songs, she still sounds like she's pouring everything she has into every line. This album, at its core, is all about self-empowerment. Self-empowerment for women and body positivity to be specific. And those are both great themes to have for your music, but if you really want to make your music connect with people on that level, for people to feel that self-confidence that you want them to, you can't just rely on good songwriting and production. To really sell it, you need to convey that confidence in your performance, and Lizzo absolutely does. She is sure of herself, how amazing she is as a woman and a plus-size performer, and hearing her sing about it all from the heart is really contagious. I'm not a woman, yet Lizzo's confidence and charisma in this record had me also feeling like I was capable of doing anything, and that I could do it like a girl. That alone is what keeps me going back to this album time and time again, why it's my favorite of the year, and why I'm incredibly excited to hear what else she makes from here. My favorite tracks from here are Like a Girl, Jerome, Tempo, Heaven Help Me, and the title track, 'Cause I Love You.
I'm crying 'cause I love you.
Alright, we're finally done. Thank you for watching. This one took a bit to come out, and I really do need to get back into making these more consistently. I've taken so long that it's already 2021.
2021?
And I'm still a year behind on these, so here's hoping that it doesn't take me too much longer to make the 2020 list. See you then.
Whoa, look at that! That's
Looks really cool, and we do only see it for the end of the movie with a very interesting relationship with technology. Fuck!
I have the high ground now.
Yeah, just fuck off.
What the fuck, dude?
Competition where people proudly
I like him.
that you
Oh,
meet what?
Arish? Yeah, I like Arish. Come on, it's through the vlog. Come on. Come on.
Can't wait for the sequel to come out in a decade.
You just rammed my ship!
IndieBox as a company was doing some pretty cool stuff. I should mention. Ah, shoot. Forgot the paper to re-record this.